All right, let's dive into this. This time we're going deep on famous fraudsters.
Oh,
Yeah, you've given me some really interesting sources about people who've managed to pull off, well, some of the most audacious scams.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like seriously, some of this stuff it's stranger than fiction.
Yeah, it's incredible how these cases just reveal so much about just human psychology, the vulnerabilities
Yeah.
in our systems and the timeless allure of getting rich quick.
Yeah, and that's what we'll be kind of looking into today.
Hmm.
Speaking of getting rich quick, let's start with the mastermind behind one of the biggest financial scandals in history, Bernie Madoff. Now, you might be familiar with the term Ponzi scheme,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what he used to swindle investors out of, well, billions.
Yeah. Madoff's scheme wasn't just big, it was operating for almost 2 decades. And that kind of raises the question, like, how did he manage to fly under the radar for so long?
Yeah, that's what's so fascinating about this case. It wasn't just Madoff's, like, charisma or his ability to just spin a good story. There were systemic failures at play here, from regulatory oversights to a culture of just blind trust on Wall Street.
Hmm.
You know?
You're right. A lot of people, even seasoned investors, wanted to believe in the myth of Madoff. He was a Wall Street legend, and he promised consistently high returns with minimal risk. It was a combination of factors that allowed this scheme to flourish for as long as it did.
It's almost unbelievable, like, how many people were affected. We're talking about $65 billion lost, including life savings of individuals, investments from huge charities. Even celebrities got caught up in this game.
Well, and the impact was devastating. People lost their homes, their retirements, their faith in the financial system. Madoff's actions created like a ripple effect of pain and suffering that went far beyond Wall Street.
And to think, all of this was built on a lie, a house of cards that was destined to collapse.
Yeah.
That moment of realization, like
Yeah.
when the scheme unraveled, that must have been truly shocking for everyone involved.
Oh.
Before we move on, I wanted to touch on this chilling quote from Madoff himself. I came across it in one of the sources you gave me. He said, "There is no innocent explanation. I am responsible for a great deal of suffering, and I will live with it for the rest of my life."
Mm.
I mean, there's a sense of resignation in those words, but also just this acknowledgement of the immense harm that he caused.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sobering reminder that, behind these grand schemes, there are real people whose lives are irrevocably changed. And it underscores the importance of understanding the mechanisms of fraud so we can better protect ourselves.
Yeah. Speaking of mechanisms, let's shift gears and talk about a case that captivated the world with its mix of innovation, ambition, and deception. Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos. Now, this story is a prime example of how hype and the promise of this revolutionary technology can blind even the most sophisticated investors.
Yeah, Holmes was a master storyteller. She painted this captivating vision of a future where blood testing would be as simple as a finger prick and would revolutionize healthcare as we know it.
And people wanted to believe her.
Yeah.
I mean, she managed to raise hundreds of millions of dollars from investors, partnered with major companies, even had former secretaries of state on her board. It's amazing how quickly she rose to fame.
But the technology that she was promising, this device that was supposed to perform like hundreds of tests with just a few drops of blood, it simply didn't exist.
Right. It was all smoke and mirrors. I remember one of the articles you shared, there was an account from a former Theranos employee who described this immense pressure to deliver results, even when it was clear the technology wasn't working as claimed.
Yeah, and that's where the ethical lines start to blur. Was Holmes intentionally deceiving investors, or did she genuinely believe that she could eventually make the technology work?
That's a question for the ages.
Yeah.
But what's clear is that her actions had real-world consequences. I mean, patients were receiving inaccurate test results, which could have had, serious implications for their health.
Right.
And when the truth came out, it sent shockwaves through the tech and healthcare industries.
The Theranos case is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the importance of due diligence when it comes to investing in new technologies, especially in fields as critical as healthcare.
And it highlights the fine line between innovation and deception. Now let's travel back in time to the early 20th century and meet the man whose name became synonymous with this type of financial scheme, Charles Ponzi.
Ponzi's story is fascinating because it lays bare the mechanics of a scheme that continues to resurface in various forms even today.
His scheme was relatively simple, but incredibly effective.
Mm.
He promised investors massive returns by exploiting price differences in international postal reply coupons. It sounded plausible, almost like arbitrage, right?
Exactly. But what people failed to realize was that the profit margins were so small that it would have been impossible to deliver the returns he was promising. Just like Madoff, he was using money from new investors to pay off earlier ones, creating this illusion of success.
It's astonishing how quickly his scheme just took off.
Mhm.
He managed to swindle people out of $20 million in just a few months, which, adjusted for inflation, that would be roughly $250 million today.
Mm.
That's wild.
What's fascinating about Ponzi's scheme is that it revealed this fundamental flaw in human psychology.
Yeah.
The power of social proof. People saw others getting paid, and it created this sense of legitimacy, of urgency. They didn't want to miss out on the easy money.
Yeah, and as we've seen with cases like Madoff and Holmes, that fear of missing out can be a powerful motivator, leading people to overlook red flags or ignore their gut instincts. Ponzi scheme, even though it happened over a century ago, it led to significant changes in U.S. financial regulations.
That's right. It exposed vulnerabilities in the system and prompted lawmakers to implement safeguards to prevent these scams from happening again.
Which, as we know, hasn't completely stopped them, but it certainly made it more difficult.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about a fraudster who took a completely different approach, one that relied on charm, audacity, and the art of impersonation. Frank Abagnale.
Oh, Abagnale. His story is like something out of a Hollywood movie. He was a master of disguise, posing
Yeah.
as a pilot, a doctor, a lawyer, even a college professor.
And the craziest part is that he managed to pull this off for years, traveling the world, living this life of luxury, all while being pursued by the FBI. There's something almost admirable about his audacity, don't you think?
It's certainly a testament to his intelligence and adaptability. He had this uncanny ability to read people and exploit their trust. He understood that people are often willing to believe what they see, especially if it confirms their expectations or their biases.
Yeah, he managed to net millions of dollars before finally being caught. But what I find fascinating is his transformation from criminal to security consultant. He now uses his expertise to help businesses and individuals protect themselves from the very kinds of scams that he used to pull off.
It's a remarkable redemption story, wouldn't you say? I mean, he's turned his knowledge of deception into a force for good, helping to make the world a little bit safer from fraudsters.
Yeah, absolutely. And it underscores the point that understanding the psychology of a fraudster is crucial to preventing fraud. So we've had the master of the Ponzi scheme, the tech visionary who blurred the lines between ambition and deception and the ultimate impersonator.
Right. Now let's step into the world of high society and meet a woman who conned New York's elite with nothing more than a carefully crafted persona and an unshakable belief in her own lies. Anna Sorokin, better known as Anna Delvey, Anna Sorokin's story. It's a fascinating example of how our fascination with wealth and status can make us vulnerable to deception.
He was like a character straight out of a movie, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Attending these exclusive parties, rubbing shoulders with celebrities, staying in luxury hotels, all while leaving this trail of unpaid bills and bounced checks in her wake.
She meticulously crafted this image of a wealthy German heiress, and she used that fabricated persona to gain access to this world that would have otherwise been completely closed off to her.
And it wasn't just about living the high life. She had this grand vision for the Anna Delvey Foundation, this exclusive arts club and foundation that she was trying to get off the ground. She even managed to secure loans from banks and investors based on the promise of her non-existent fortune.
It's incredible how she managed to convince so many people that she was the real deal. She understood the power of appearances, of social proof, and of creating a narrative that people wanted to believe.
One of your sources, an article from New York Magazine, it delves into the psychological tactics that she used. She was a master manipulator, playing on people's insecurities and their desire to be part of something exclusive.
Right. She understood that in a world obsessed with wealth and status, perception is often more important than reality.
And it's a reminder that fraudsters often prey on our desires, whether it's for wealth, connection, or a sense of belonging. They understand how to exploit those vulnerabilities and create narratives that we want to believe, even when the evidence suggests otherwise. But her web of lies eventually unraveled, and she was exposed as a fraud. What I find interesting is that even after she was convicted, she seemed to maintain this certain level of defiance, almost as if she believed her own con.
It speaks to the complexities of human psychology, doesn't it? The ability to compartmentalize, to rationalize one's actions, and to maintain a sense of self-belief, even in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary.
Yeah. It's a reminder that the line between delusion and deception can sometimes be very blurry. Now, speaking of blurring lines, let's talk about a man whose story became synonymous with the excesses of the 1990s. Jordan Belfort, the infamous Wolf of Wall Street. You mentioned that you've seen the movie, so you know this one is going to be a wild ride.
Belfort's story is a cautionary tale about the dark side of the American dream, the allure of quick riches and the dangers of unchecked greed.
He built this empire on lies and manipulation, fueled by a culture of excess and a complete disregard for the rules. His brokerage firm, Stratton Oakmont, it engaged in all sorts of shady practices like pump and dump schemes to defraud investors out of millions.
It's important to understand how these pump and dump schemes, how they actually work, because they're still a threat to investors today. Essentially, Belfort and his associates would artificially inflate the price of a stock through misleading information and aggressive sales tactics that then they would sell their shares at a huge profit, leaving unsuspecting investors holding the bag when the price inevitably crashed.
It was like a financial game of hot potato, and Belfort was one who always knew when to drop the potato before it burned him.
Right.
He made a fortune doing it, but it came at the expense of countless individuals who lost their life savings. It's a classic example of how unregulated markets can create opportunities for exploitation and how the pursuit of wealth can lead to ethical compromises and ultimately self-destruction.
Belfort's story is a reminder that financial literacy is crucial, and that if an investment opportunity sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
Always do your research and be wary of high-pressure sales tactics or promises of guaranteed returns.
And be especially cautious of penny stocks, which are often the target of pump and dump schemes. Speaking of operating in the shadows, let's move on to a fraudster who used his position in the music industry to bilk investors out of millions. Lou Pearlman. This one is particularly interesting because it involves the exploitation of young, aspiring artists.
Pearlman was a successful music producer responsible for creating some of the biggest boy bands of the 1990s, like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. But behind the scenes, he was running a massive Ponzi scheme, using money from new investors to pay off old ones and fund his lavish lifestyle.
Wait, so the guy who launched the careers of these iconic boy bands was also running a Ponzi scheme. That's a plot twist I didn't see coming. I remember reading about this in one of your sources, a book called The Hit Charade. It's a deep dive into the darker side of the music industry and Pearlman's role in it.
Pearlman's case is particularly heartbreaking because it involved the exploitation of young, aspiring artists who were drawn to the allure of fame and fortune. These were teenagers who had dreams of making it big, and he used their talent and hard work to fuel his fraudulent activities.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even industries that seem glamorous and exciting can harbor dark secrets, and that exploitation can happen anywhere, even in the world of music and entertainment. It's important to be aware of the potential for abuse, especially when dealing with young and vulnerable individuals.
Absolutely, and it highlights the importance of having strong contracts, legal representation, and a support system in place to protect oneself from exploitation.
So we've seen how fraud can permeate various sectors, from finance to technology to entertainment. Yeah. Now let's take a look at a case that reminds us that fraud can happen anywhere, even in small towns where where everyone knows each other. Let's talk about Rita Cronwell.
Crinwell's story is a shocking example of how someone can betray the trust of an entire community for personal gain. She was the city treasurer for a small town in Illinois, and for nearly 20 years, she embezzled over $53 million from the city's coffers.
It's mind-boggling how she managed to pull it off for so long. She was a trusted figure in the community, and no one suspected a thing. One of the articles you shared mentioned that she used the stolen funds to fund her lavish lifestyle, including a horse breeding operation and a collection of luxury cars.
It's a classic example of how greed can blind someone to the consequences of their actions. She was so focused on maintaining her facade of wealth that she lost sight of the harm she was inflicting on her community.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we can't be complacent when it comes to financial oversight, even in small organizations. Checks and balances are crucial to prevent fraud. And we all have a responsibility to speak up if we see something suspicious. But even with safeguards in place, sometimes people find ways to exploit the system, which brings us to a case that proves even celebrities aren't immune to the allure of insider trading. Martha Stewart. This one might seem like small potatoes compared to some of the other cases we've discussed, but it raises important questions about ethics, privilege, and accountability.
Stewart's case is a prime example of how even seemingly small acts of dishonesty can have major consequences, especially when you're in the public eye.
She was convicted of insider trading after selling shares in a company based on non-public information, avoiding a significant financial loss in the process.
Yeah.
It might seem like a victimless crime, but insider trading undermines the fairness and integrity of the stock market, creating this uneven playing field for investors.
Right. And it erodes public trust in the financial system. When people believe that the markets are rigged, they're less likely to invest, which can have a negative impact on the economy as a whole.
And for Stewart, the consequences were significant. She was convicted of obstructing justice and lying to investigators, served time in prison, and saw her business empire take a major hit. It's a reminder that no one is above the law, and that even seemingly minor ethical lapses can have far-reaching repercussions.
It also highlights the importance of transparency and accountability in the business world. When those in positions of power abuse their access to information for personal gain, it sets a dangerous precedent.
Now, to wrap up this segment of our deep dive, let's delve into the world of corporate fraud with a case that shook the healthcare industry, Richard M. Scrushy and the Health South scandal.
Scrushy was the CEO of Health South, a healthcare services company that became embroiled in a massive accounting scandal in the early 2000s. He and other executives were accused of inflating the company's earnings by more than $2.7 billion to meet Wall Street expectations and boost their own compensation.
This case is particularly disturbing because it involved the manipulation of financial records related to healthcare, which is supposed to be about caring for people, not about lining the pockets of executives.
Right. It's a stark reminder that fraud can occur in any industry, even those that are seemingly focused on providing essential services, and the impact of corporate fraud can be devastating, not just for investors but for employees, patients, and the wider economy.
Absolutely. In Health South's case, thousands of employees lost their jobs. Investors lost billions of dollars, and the company's reputation was tarnished. It's a sobering reminder that ethical leadership is crucial, and that a culture of greed and deception can have far-reaching consequences.
Yeah.
But as we've seen throughout this deep dive, even in the face of such egregious acts of fraud, there are always lessons to be learned and insights to be gained.
It's fascinating how these stories of fraud, as different as they are, they all share this common thread, this exploitation of trust.
Yeah.
Whether it's, the trust between a financial advisor and their client, a CEO and their investors, or even a city treasurer and their community, these fraudsters all found ways to manipulate that trust for personal gain.
It's true, and what's even more unsettling is that these individuals often presented themselves as trustworthy, even charming,
Yeah.
making it easier for people to fall for their schemes. I mean, Madoff, he cultivated this image of respectability and exclusivity. Holmes charmed investors with her vision of the future,
Hmm.
and Sorokin used her fabricated persona to infiltrate the upper echelons of society. It all points to the importance of just being discerning,
Hmm.
of not taking things at face value, and of doing your own research before making any significant financial decisions.
It's a good reminder that we can't simply rely on reputation or appearances when it comes to financial matters. We need to be critical thinkers,
Yeah.
question assumptions and look beyond the surface to assess the true risks and rewards of any investment opportunity.
And to be fair, it's not always easy to spot a fraudster. These individuals are often, skilled manipulators, experts at reading people and tailoring their pitches to exploit specific vulnerabilities.
Yeah, that's why it's so crucial to be aware of the common tactics that fraudsters use, such as, creating a sense of urgency or scarcity, using social pressure to encourage conformity or appealing to our emotions like greed or fear.
As we've been talking about these cases, I've been thinking about how technology has changed the landscape of fraud
Mm.
with the rise of social media, online scams, and cryptocurrency. It seems like the opportunities for deception have multiplied.
That's a great point. Technology has undoubtedly created new avenues for fraudsters to reach potential victims, but it's also given us new tools to fight back.
Right.
For example, there are now sophisticated algorithms and data analytics tools that can help detect patterns of fraudulent activity.
And there's a growing awareness of the importance of cybersecurity and online safety. We're all becoming more savvy about protecting our personal information and being cautious about online interactions.
Right. And let's not forget the power of collective intelligence. Online forums and communities can be valuable resources for sharing information about scams and warning others about potential threats.
Mm.
So while technology has created new challenges, it's also empowered us to be more vigilant and proactive in protecting ourselves from fraud.
Absolutely. It's all about adapting to the changing landscape and staying one step ahead of the fraudsters.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Mhm.
what's the key takeaway for our listener? What should they be thinking about as they navigate this complex world of financial opportunities and potential pitfalls? I think the most important thing is to cultivate a healthy skepticism. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to challenge assumptions and to do your own due diligence.
Trust your instincts, and if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Remember, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And in the realm of finance, that knowledge can be the difference between financial security and falling victim to a scam.
And don't be afraid to seek advice from trusted sources, whether it's a financial advisor, a lawyer, or even a friend or family member who has experience in financial matters. Sometimes an outside perspective can help you see things more clearly and avoid making costly mistakes.
This has been a fascinating exploration of the world of famous fraudsters. We've seen how their schemes have impacted individuals, communities, and even entire industries, but we've also learned valuable lessons about the importance of vigilance, critical thinking, and ethical decision making.
These stories serve as cautionary tales, reminding us that fraud can happen anywhere to anyone, but they also empower us to be more informed, more discerning, and more proactive in safeguarding our financial well-being.
So as we conclude this deep dive, let's leave our listener with one final thought-provoking question. What systemic changes could be implemented to make our society more resilient to fraud and to foster a culture of greater transparency and accountability?
That's a great question to ponder. It's not just about, catching individual fraudsters.
Yeah.
It's about creating a system that makes it more difficult for them to operate in the first place.
Exactly. It's about addressing the root causes of fraud, promoting ethical behavior, and fostering a culture of trust and integrity. Thanks for joining us in this journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.